Before diving into this incredible story, remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, every story has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. Michael Thompson watched his restaurant from the entrance, his hands gripping the counter. The place, which he had built with his own hands in the heart of Chicago, was supposed to be a place where everyone felt welcome and respected. But in recent weeks, something had changed. His employees, some of whom he considered almost like family, had begun to treat him with a disdain he could no longer ignore. Lisa, the waitress promoted 6 months ago, and Jake, the arrogant young busboy, would make thinly veiled remarks about her skin color. "Do you really talk to customers like that?" Lisa would ask with a mocking smile. Or Jake would imitate her voice when Michael wasn't in the dining room, just to make the others laugh. Every incident, even if it seemed trivial, was a small blow to her self-esteem and patience. That evening, as he was cleaning the tables after service, Michael felt a cold rage coursing through him. He remembered the words he had endured all day, whispers behind his back, knowing laughter from the employees, insinuations about his competence. All because of his skin color. But Michael wasn't one to react impulsively. He knew that an outburst of anger would only increase his humiliation. No, he wanted something more subtle. A revenge that would strike where it hurt most, but invisibly. He wanted his employees to realize, for themselves, the gravity of their actions. He sat down in a chair, his eyes fixed on the restaurant door, reflecting on each recent humiliation. Every detail, every remark, every scornful laugh was registered in his mind. He knew he had to be patient, calculating, and wait for the perfect moment to act. That moment would come soon. And when it did, Michael would make his employees face up to their own mistakes in the least likely and most humiliating way possible, but this time, he would be in control. The restaurant was bustling that evening, more so than ever. Michael had organized a special dinner for his employees, an event he wanted to be festive and rewarding. The tables were carefully decorated, the soft lighting created a warm atmosphere, and small gifts awaited each employee as a thank you for their work. Michael, dressed in his best suit, walked around the room with a polite smile, shaking hands, exchanging a few kind words. But with every step, he felt the mocking glances scrutinizing him, the whispers behind his back. "So, boss, are you finally going to learn how to smile properly?" Lisa said, giving him a sarcastic wink in front of some customers, who raised an intrigued eyebrow. Michael felt a surge of anger, but he held it back. He took a deep breath, clenching his fists under the table. He didn't want to lose control, not here, not in front of everyone. He continued to offer smiles and compliments, feigning cheerfulness. Then it was Jake's turn. The young clerk approached him with a feigned air of innocence. "Boss, you should let Lisa handle this part, you're going to mess it up again." The muffled laughter of the other employees echoed behind him. Michael felt his heart beat faster, but he forced himself to remain calm. He took a deep breath and replied in a measured voice, "Thank you for your advice, Jake. I'll think about it." At the end of the evening, as the employees left the restaurant, Michael remained alone to clean the tables. He mentally noted every humiliation, every sarcastic remark, every knowing laugh. Everything was recorded. He now knew exactly who needed to learn a lesson and how he was going to bring them down, but not today. No, he would wait. Patience would be his greatest weapon. And when the time came, every humiliation he had suffered would turn against them in the most unexpected way possible. Michael turned off the restaurant lights and left, the Chicago night enveloping his thoughts. A silent revenge was brewing, and no one would see it coming. In the days that followed, Michael Thompson acted as if nothing had happened. He smiled, offered compliments, and spoke kindly to his employees. But behind this mask of calm, a silent strategy was taking shape. Every gesture, every word, every change in the restaurant was carefully calculated. He began by observing his employees more closely. Every extended break, every preparation error, every mocking glance was carefully noted in his personal notebook. Lisa, always so arrogant, had a tendency to rush the table setting. Jake, for his part, was careless in handling the dishes and ingredients, sometimes causing minor accidents. Michael knew exactly where they were vulnerable. Next, he introduced subtle changes to the restaurant's operations, a new service protocol, slightly modified menus, and a job rotation schedule. These adjustments seemed innocuous, but they forced his employees to confront their own shortcomings. Michael remained in the background, feigning ignorance and patience, while their small mistakes began to accumulate. He also observed the relationships between them. The alliances and natural jealousies within the group were perfect levers for his future revenge. Michael knew that by playing on these tensions, he could amplify the effect of his strategy without lifting a finger directly. Every evening, after closing time, he noted his observations and adjusted his plan. He knew that direct and noisy revenge wouldn't have the desired effect. He wanted something subtle, almost imperceptible, that would trap his employees themselves in their own behavior. One evening, as he closed the door behind him, Michael allowed himself a slight smile. His patience was paying off. Soon, his humiliations would be turned against those who had inflicted them, but this time, no one would be able to blame him. His revenge would be invisible, silent, and all the more painful for those who had underestimated him. A few weeks later, Michael decided it was time to take action. He discreetly contacted a food hygiene and safety expert, pretending he wanted to ensure the restaurant was impeccable for its customers. The inspector would arrive unannounced, a routine check that seemed innocuous but would expose the flaws of even the most arrogant employees. In the days leading up to the inspection, Michael observed even more closely. Lisa continued to be careless with the setup, often forgetting to check the cutlery or glasses. Jake, for his part, handled the food carelessly, touching dirty surfaces before putting the dishes back on the tables. These minor errors, which Michael could have corrected himself, were now on the inspection team's radar. On the day of the inspection, Michael stood apart, like a mere spectator. Lisa dropped a tray of glasses under the watchful eye of the inspector, while Jake forgot to follow food safety guidelines. Michael feigned surprise and concern, thanking the inspector for his advice. But inside, a feeling of quiet satisfaction was growing. After the inspection, Michael invited his employees to a debriefing meeting. The inspector calmly explained the infractions, without revealing who had committed them. But the facts spoke for themselves. The negligence, errors, and lack of professionalism were now documented. Lisa felt a shiver run down her spine when she realized she couldn't defend herself. Jake tried to joke around to deflect attention, but the detective wasn't fooled. Michael remained impassive, his gaze calm and controlled. Not a single word of direct reproach passed his lips. He knew that shame and humiliation would come of their own accord. That evening, after closing time, Michael remained in the restaurant, contemplating the silent consequences of his strategy. Patience, discretion, and careful observation had worked perfectly. He knew the moment his employees would be publicly confronted with their mistakes was approaching. And when that happened, it would be far more humiliating than any direct confrontation. A few days after the inspection, Michael announced a special meeting with all his employees. He remained calm and smiling, as if simple routine discussions were about to take place. But this time, the roles would be reversed. "I received the inspector's report," Michael began, his voice calm and professional. "And I wanted to share it with you so we can all learn and improve." Then, he handed out copies of the report. The employees' eyes fell on the pages filled with remarks about negligence, handling errors, and violations of hygiene rules. Lisa felt dizzy as she read the section detailing her repeated oversights and service errors. Jake, meanwhile, tried to smile, but his hands trembled as he saw his shortcomings laid out in black and white. Michael continued, unperturbed, "I am certain that no one intentionally neglected their responsibilities. But these mistakes have a real impact on our reputation and the safety of our customers. We must all be accountable for our actions." Murmurs began to spread among the employees, and some regular customers who were there that evening started asking questions, intrigued by the seriousness of the remarks. The tension mounted. Lisa lowered her eyes, humiliated, while Jake felt trapped by his own thoughtless behavior. Michael remained silent for a moment, letting the weight of the words and the report do its work. No direct recriminations, no dramatic confrontations. The shame stemmed from the public exposure of their own mistakes, amplified by the presence of clients and colleagues. At the end of the meeting, Michael calmly concluded, "I hope this will serve as a lesson and that we can all move forward with more professionalism and mutual respect." As his employees left the room, Michael watched them in silence. The looks he had previously endured, mocking, arrogant, contemptuous, had now transformed into shame, nervousness, and quiet respect. His subtle revenge had worked perfectly. For Michael that night, victory required neither shouting nor violence. It lay in the revelation that truth, even silent truth, could be the most powerful weapon. The weeks following the public exposure of her employees' mistakes were revealing. Lisa and Jake's reputations had suffered an irreparable blow. Regular customers, previously forgiving of their minor blunders, began to notice their lack of professionalism. Some even avoided asking to be served by them. Michael, for his part, remained calm and as professional as ever. He never made a disparaging comment or publicly remarked on the humiliations his employees were subjected to. But his complete control of the situation was evident. He had transformed a workplace where he was once despised into a place where his authority and respect were unquestionable. Lisa tried to regain her influence, but each attempt ended in failure. Her colleagues, having attended the meeting and realized her mistakes, no longer supported her. Jake, meanwhile, became nervous and hesitant, dreading every interaction with clients and colleagues. Michael watched all this with quiet satisfaction. He knew his revenge didn't require violence or direct confrontation. The truth, revealed at the right moment, had been enough to turn the tables. The humiliations he had suffered were now turned against those who had inflicted them, and almost perfectly. One evening, as he was closing the restaurant, Michael paused for a moment in the middle of the empty dining room. He took a deep breath, savoring the calm after the storm. Patience, planning, and subtlety had paid off. His revenge had been executed with intelligence, leaving a lasting lesson for those who had underestimated him. He smiled slightly as he looked at the neatly arranged tables, the dim lighting, and the spotless counter. This place, which he had built with passion and resilience, was no longer just a restaurant. It was a symbol of his strength and his ability to transform humiliation into a silent victory. Michael turned off the lights and stepped out into the cold Chicago night. He knew that respect, once earned this way, would never disappear. And for the first time in a long time, he felt truly free and in control of his destiny.